Good morning. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of the Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors. And just so, I think I already mentioned this, but we'll convene initially as the OASIS Board, but I think we should do the pledge now, right? I guess, before we do any business.
I have it twice, but either we can do it now and do it again.
Should we wait? Why don't we wait, and that way we'll have everyone here for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Good morning, President Powell,
Here.
Vice President Estrada,
Here.
and Director Aguilar.
Here.
Thank you.
Good. All right, so this is the OASIS Project Board, and we do have one item that we need to consider for approval. William, come on up.
And I'm sorry, Mr. President, if I may, just for the record, this is the OASIS Project Board in that there was a need to recuse 3 board members due to a financial interest and property proximity to the OASIS project. The FEPC requirements then state that 1 board member can be requalified in order to have a quorum. That was you, Mr. President. And so as a result, for a number of years now, these 3 directors are qualified to hear matters regarding the OASIS project.
Thank you. And for those of you who are new, we literally drew names out of a hat to requalify the director.
High tech.
Yeah, it's random. All right, go ahead.
Good morning, OASIS Board. Today, I'm requesting that the board certify the addendum number 1 to the OASIS Area Irrigation Expansion Project Final Environmental Impact Report and authorize staff to file a notice of determination. I'm going to summarize this board item rather than reading it verbatim. Essentially, what's happened is during construction of the project, engineering has contacted IID to provide the service upgrades for the project to serve booster stations to pump the irrigation water. IID takes that request to their board of directors, and they are subject to CEQA to make that discretionary action. They asked for coverage under our environmental impact report. We had a generalized description, but there was just unknown information at the time the environmental document was written. So this was a good example of when an addendum is required. So engineering worked with IID to establish a project description for those electrical service upgrades and include that in the addendum. Now those specific project impacts were evaluated against the previous final environmental impact report conclusions and determinations for each resource topic and determined that no additional mitigation measures were required. That information was also reviewed by IID and they're in agreement with that. So this is the procedural task that we need to do to provide the CEQA coverage for IID to complete the project. So.
Yeah, and is there any reason that, do we have any concern that IID might not approve, the board might not approve this? I mean, is there anything in there that's unusual?
No, we've worked with their staff closely on this, so
okay.
No concern.
Is there any impact on construction schedule?
Not that I know of. I think they were, David was looking at probably the end of the year to make sure we had this wrapped up and we'll stay on track. Oh, there you go.
Hi, good morning. There's no impact to the construction schedule.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Follow up, and it's probably separate from this, but when you say no impact, is that no impact to our projected next year or
That's
this
correct.
year? So is it still projected to be June or?
It is still projected to be done by the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve item 3A?
I'll make the motion to approve the item.
Second.
Thank you. So motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passed 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
David, could you do me a favor and walk around the corner and ask Directors Nelson and Bianco to return, please?
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
He's the sergeant at arms.
It's not an official position, sir. It's just a temporary. I don't want Director Nelson to get upset with me, especially today. Thanks, David.
At this time, I'll call to order the full board for the regular meeting. And would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call, please.
Sure, we'll do this again. Good morning, President, Vice President Estrada,
Here.
Director Bianco,
Here.
Director Aguilar,
Here?
and Director Nelson.
Here. Good, we have everyone here present. I guess I didn't do our introductory remarks yet. I'll do them now. Do we need to do it if everyone's here? I guess because of the participation by Zoom.
Correct.
Yeah. I'd like to make clear for the record that this meeting is being conducted as permitted under AB 361 and Board Resolution 2022-10. Today's meeting is presented in a hybrid format, in person at CBWD Steve Robbins Administration Building and via Zoom. Members of the public may participate in person or via Zoom. Zoom details are listed on the meeting agenda. And the meeting is streamed live on the district's website and YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to comment on any item on the agenda or within the jurisdiction of the district will have 3 minutes. Public comment may be provided in person, via Zoom, or by emailing the clerk of the board. Such comments will become part of the board meeting record. I think I can skip the rest of this stuff since we're all here. I'll read it if anyone leaves and joins us remotely. Next is the additions and deletions or adjustments to today's agenda. I'm not aware of any changes. Are there?
Sir, I just have one item for those that were not present earlier today when I made the announcement, but we are welcoming our new Director of Finance, Rick Aragon, here. He is sitting in the blue shirt to the left of the audience. He's on, is that the bride's side or the groom's side? I don't know, but there's certainly more people on the other side. I don't,
There always are.
the way it is. But welcome, Rick.
Yeah, welcome. Okay,
Other than that, there are no changes to the agenda, sir.
thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to make public comment at this time? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Mr. Luna.
Good morning.
Mr. Luna, if you would just make sure the blue light on that microphone is on. There's
And
a little-
you can sit down if
Yeah.
that's easier for you. You
Everyone
can have a seat.
Yeah, it probably fits better if you sit down with that mic.
And then we'll start the timer once you're ready.
Is the blue light on?
Now it is.
There we go.
All right, thank you. My name is Ed Luna, and I'm a customer of the Coachella Valley Water District. I live in Mecca. And I've started attending meetings recently, and we've had the pleasure, all of us, last meeting you had in October, to hear a retiree or a person who is getting ready to retire give a little narrative in terms of how he came to work for the Water District. And if I recall, according to my notes, he was a self-employed local businessman and raising a family in the Coachella Valley, and also would have liked to spend a lot more time with his family and his one of his children who was involved in sports and academics, and it was his ability to be an employee of the Water District that allowed him to enjoy all those benefits of being a parent and a resident and customer of the Coachella Valley Water District. So I think what I heard there was that he pretty much represented who we are as members of the desert community and who you represent as directors over the Coachella Valley Water District. Your service is to be commended. Everything that you represent, everything, the policies and practices that you put into effect are definitely to our benefit. And so my reason here is to go back to this person's narrative and say, please consider that narrative, his farewell speech, if you will, as a voice that represents the majority of who we are and very representative of the community at large. And so when we talk about, let's just say, encouraging or supporting people who would like your support in assessing the customer base, the property owners, business owners, families, etc. Further, especially on services, the target services that are already established, like public agencies like the Coachella Valley Water District, Imperial Irrigation District, etc., etc. And speaking of Imperial Irrigation District, I want to correct a mistake I made last meeting that the City of Indio was already assessing against the Imperial Irrigation Water Districts, if you'd let me finish, please, of 1%. It's the true amount is actually 6%, which is a lot greater than 1%. So please take into consideration to limit, let's just say, those types of, if you will, pleas and support requests to those type of people that ask you to allow them to place assessments against our already existing public services. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else wishing to make public comment at this time?
And Mr. President, we do have at least one attendee on Zoom, so I would just officially like to note that if the attendees on Zoom would like to provide public comment, if they could please use the raise hand feature either now at public comment or at any time during one of the items of action before the board. And I'll give them a minute.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar, items 8A through L. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Yeah, so moved.
Second?
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passed 5-0. To the action calendar, and Robert Chang is going to handle 10A and B with one presentation that covers both. Morning, Robert.
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. Happy to bring a few items in front of the board for your consideration today as related to the Colorado River conservation for this agency. So the two actions, the first one is connected with 10A and the second item is connected with 10B. So I'll briefly kind of run through what these are. So I think we all know the background to why we're discussing this, and this board has taken some previous actions, I think back in June, for agricultural conservation program. The two programs that for funding that we're speaking of today, the first one is the 500+ plan, and the idea was to conserve 1 million acre feet in 22 and 23. There's $200 million available funding. I'll get a little bit more into the pots on that. The more recent one is the one on the bottom, the Lower Colorado Conservation Efficiency Program, which was released, I think it was about mid-October by Reclamation, and it brought up about $4 billion available funds for essentially 23 until beginning 26. And it has both short and long-term actions. And the reason why we're bringing this in front of the board today is the deadline for submittals of the proposals is going to be essentially another 2 weeks on November 21st. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that. So the first item, for the 500-plus plan participation, which is the topic of the first agreement. Why are we looking at this? Well, it's because this is the only program available for 2022 to kind of generate or fund for conserved water. And the idea, I think, staff came up with in conjunction with some discussions with the board is perhaps we can kind of jumpstart, the process. As I think, everybody on the board and the public knows, we've been going through a lot of negotiations, not just within California, but also with other states. And so far, the actions have been not much. So the idea is maybe this agency can jumpstart, that process. And the idea was maybe we can curtail deliveries at the Levy replenishment facility. So in a lot of discussions with Reclamation, which first started this discussion with Reclamation, I think, middle of October, and then we had some subsequent discussions with them during the Water Education Foundation conference in Santa Fe. And we've been working very closely with the Reclamation staffing on this. So the idea for the basis of the agreement is the 5-year baseline that we came up with for the replenishment facility is about a little bit over 37,000 acre feet. And this is the most recent 5 years, complete 5 years. We've recharged a total of a little less than 28,000 acre feet to date when the decision was made to demonstrate. So the idea was if we take, the 5-year baseline, subtract out what we recharged, this would be the volume conserved. So it's a little bit over 9,000 acre feet. So this is what is baked into the agreement right now. And we're also seeking a notice exemption for this action. Because the 500-plus plan is the only program available, the reimbursement rate is $261.60 per acre foot. And the payment will be conducted in this way. The first payment, which represents 75% of the total, so that's about $1.78 million, will be paid 60 days after execution of this agreement and also the revised water order. So the way that we would do our revised water order is we would show a decrease or deduct of 9,083 acre feet. We've already discussed this with Reclamation, and I think they're fine with that approach. And then the second payment, or the balance, will be made 60 days after the finalization of the decree accounting process, which takes place in May of 2023. So that's for what we contemplate on doing in 2022, and that's the topic of the first agreement, 10A. The Lower Colorado Conservation Participation, the program is available from 23 to 25. It's the 3-year program. And currently there are there's actually 3 components that are spelled out in the reclamation letter that went to Jim. But there's only 2 components available right now. The first one is 1A, and it promotes a fixed pricing strategy of $330 an acre foot of conserved water, up to $400 acre foot for a 3-year commitment. And I think the 2-year is somewhere in the middle. 1B is the request for proposal process for a longer-term system efficiency project. And the last one, which I didn't cover, is component 2, but that hasn't been spelled out yet. And that's, the intent is to come up with some more durable, longer-lasting conservation projects, which this agency is looking at right now in advance of that. So Commissioner Tootin made it pretty clear in the last few meetings that, if we're talking about, short-term, water conservation projects like, fallowing or, water reduction, 1A is really the way to go. And, you know, the RFP process under 1B is really designed more for the longer-term projects for now. So because of the short timeline and I think the clarity of the instructions, we intend to submit under component 1A. So our two proposals, which will conserve up to combined 35,000 acre feet per year for 3 years, is the first one is the levee replenishment recharge curtailment program, and it's similar to what I just discussed. But we're proposing to enroll for 3 years at $400 an acre foot. The other program, which I'll discuss here, is the Colorado River Conservation Program, which it was very similar to what the board adopted back in June, and for numerous reasons, we were never able to get it fully launched. This program, you know, has a participation level of 10,000 acre foot per year, and we're still contemplating that. And the distribution of component 1A reimbursements, which be $400 acre foot for the 3 years, or I'm sorry, $330 to $400 acre foot. Participants will receive anywhere between $270 acre foot to $340, kind of depending on, you know, how many years that they decide to enroll. And $60 acre foot, which is consistent with what the previously adopted program will be reimbursed this agency to cover any program-related costs. We don't have the full details of the program administration and some of the other details. Right now, you know, what we're trying to do with this, what we're requesting approval from the board on this action is simply to put into proposals to Reclamation to start the discussions on that. Obviously, you know, it's going to be, you know, a little bit of a process to kind of iron throughout, you know, the baselines and administration, whether, you know, they would like for CVWD to kind of administer the program, and then the reimbursement comes from Reclamation, similar to, I think, how we kind of constructed the other program. So, you know, so for the 3-year programs, both on levee as well as this, you know, this is simply, we're putting proposals out there and seeking the board's authorization to allow us to submit these for consideration with Reclamation, and, you know, there'll be further discussions to come. So these are the two actions, and, you know, happy to kind of take any questions as you kind of consider, you know, the requests.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, when you talk about the actions are simply to submit the proposals, are you talking about proposals for both programs or just specifically the Lower Colorado River Conservation Participation Program, or is it both of them?
Yeah, thanks for that clarifying question. So the very first one, where, you know, we talk about agreement number 23-X-30W0749, that's the first action. That references the agreement with Reclamation for 2022, and that one is not a proposal. That one is actually an agreement. So that will save 9,083 acre feet to be paid at $261.60 an acre foot. That one is actually an actionable request. The second one, which is the authorized submittal proposals, that's the one that we're asking to submit to Reclamation by November 21st. And that's for the two programs.
Okay, and thank you for that. And then the very first slide you shared had 3 different categories. It said voluntary, temporary, compensated.
Right.
Is that's applicable to both programs? They're both
is.
voluntary, they're both temporary, and they're obviously both compensated. And I guess what I was trying to understand is I think the way I've understood it is we have some obligation to do some conservation, or at least we've agreed as part of this participation that we would, and I, you know, so correct me if I'm, because I know there's a lot of stuff that's moving around, but you know, some of the last things that I remember we were talking about, based on IID's contributions, we would try to do 10% of that. And so we were looking at a potential number that we would have to be on the hook for conserving. And what I'm trying to understand is if any of this is part of that, if we're completely away from that now, where we don't have to make any conservations and we're simply doing this on a voluntary basis, or are those two different things?
Let me see if I can, try to simplify, what's a pretty complicated process. So if I can just step back just a moment. So Commissioner Tootin, back in June, basically came out with a call for action. I think based on all reclamations modeling, she, did, I think, congressional testimony that 2 to 4 million acre feet of additional water is to be conserved, in the system. She didn't put any attributions on how that was going to be done, to not build elevations, but simply to kind of keep both Powell and Meade at functional levels. And by functional levels, I mean power generation at Powell, and then in Lake Mead, to keep it from crashing below, say, like, 1,000 to 1020. So we've been going through a lot of discussions with both the other states within California and also with reclamation on what that might look like. I wouldn't say the negotiations have been easy. They definitely have not been smooth, but the fact remains that, this volume is still needed. So because of the, I'd say, the lack of progress, substantial progress on the discussions, California took a leadership position and said, okay, we can contribute up to 400,000 acre feet towards this effort. So that was, I think, back in September, if I remember correctly. We were the only state to come forward with a number. And we put that out there in the hopes that other states would, come up with something. So with that 400,000 number, you're right, we've had some discussions internally within the California parties on how that's going to be achieved. Those discussions are still ongoing. I think CVWD has talked about, being a percentage of IID, and I think that still is there. So I can't speak for what what IID's number is. That's still kind of a subject of ongoing negotiations. But I do believe that, what we're committing to here is in alignment and is consistent with that. And the idea is we don't do something here. The federal actions are contemplating, various things. Part 417 consultation, evaporation losses, which, have strong support from other states. So, if that happens and, that effort is successful, I think this whole compensated and voluntary goes away.
So Robert, can I, just trying to get to the answer. I know you're getting there. I think what we're interested in is, and for 2022, that's kind of on its own, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's not part of the new plan for the 3 years and all that. But if we participate in 2023, 24, and 25, and we save 35,000 acre feet a year, we want to know, does that count? Let's say that the secretary comes up with a program that's not voluntary, that say they somehow find a way to mandate cuts in California, or the river drops and we have that. Does this count? I mean, I think we want to know that this voluntary effort counts towards something if it's no longer voluntary, that we're not just going to do it and then have to do it again. Right. If, in 2023, if there's some other program that's mandatory.
Right. Well, I would say it was definitely not additive. I don't think, I think we've had some discussions, with the board on this.
Yeah, we have, but so that we get credit for this. We're going to do it.
That would be how we would position it.
We're going to do it no matter what.
Right.
But if there's a mandatory program, this counts towards that.
And I think, Robert, that's what I was trying to get at.
Sorry.
I was trying to figure out if if there was a hard number that we were somehow committed to in some sort of agreement, and it sounds like there isn't an agreement yet, those are still being negotiated. But to the extent that there was a hard number, whether this was going to count toward that number at some point. I think that's what I was really
Yeah,
trying to get.
sorry about that. I was, kind of thinking,
No, but I
bigger
really
picture.
appreciate the history, because I know it's been going on for a while, and so thank you for the recap.
yeah, no, thanks for putting up with my.
The only thing that I might clarify is if there is a reduction of lake level in Lake Mead that gets the DCP down into a 2B, 2C area, is there's an additional amount of DCP contributions that we've thought about in terms of our contractual arrangements with Metropolitan and other ways to meet those calls that that would be, subject to, Coachella reducing those amounts, which would run between 17,000 acre feet and 26,000 acre feet. But we previously talked about that and thought that that was a doable number as well. Just, to clarify.
The DCP portion would be added to this.
The DCP portion would be additive, yes, sir.
If those levels are triggered.
Correct.
I have a question,
Of course.
just because I'm not, why are we limiting ag participation to 10,000?
I think that is the CEQA coverage that we have. So it's environmental coverage that we have for, no impacts,
For what?
for no impacts, environmental impacts. So, you reduce water use, there's some,
Sea? Because of the Salton Sea, is that what we're talking about?
That's correct.
I mean, certainly if the participation level was higher, I think we could probably, try to address that issue. I mean, I think the state's been kind of working with us on Salton Sea issues. But right now, I think, based on the first round of, the program that the board approved back in June, I think, 10,000 is a pretty optimistic number, but that was under the old
That was the old. that
payment
was the
schedule.
old, different, yeah, this is new, this is three.
That's correct.
And I mean, that's a good question, Anthony, and I know that the state and the California Natural Resources Association and agency, and the Bureau of Reclamation have been working on a coordinated agreement to address Salton Sea issues under the Salton Sea 10-year Salton Sea Management Program. And so it's possible that that this could move forward under that agreement and have additional volumes for conservation under ag. But currently, as Robert said, and as Steve has opined on, is that the 10,000 acre foot limit would be under the limit for CEQA coverage for Salton Sea issues. So,
Doesn't IID have a limit for?
yeah,
coverage?
they will have that as well, but in order to kind of get to meet this November 21st deadline with the Bureau for the voluntary program under the Lower Colorado River Conservation and Efficiency Program, then if we could approve this today, then that just gets the ball rolling and we're under their deadline and we meet their deadline.
Right.
It just seems like there's no way you're gonna get the 400,000 acre feet. I mean, if there's this thing holding it up with IID, but we'll see.
Well,
it's all kind of, you're looking out there and saying, is it gonna happen? And, there's a lot of efforts being put towards this, and I think with Coachella doing their part, PBID doing their part, and then the Upper Basin doing their part in terms of water conservation as well, because it can't just be a Lower Basin addressing of conservation programs. It has to be, Upper and Lower Basin together.
Okay.
Robert, I have a couple questions related to the reimbursement amount. So first question is, they're different for replenishment versus conservation program. So are those numbers set by the feds, or why is there such a distinction in amounts?
Yeah, I apologize if I wasn't 100% clear. So these are two different programs. We were trying to slot in the 2022 program, for the $400 acre foot. We were not successful because that program, the Lower Conservation Program, Lower Colorado Conservation Program is the one that offers $400 acre foot. It is not currently active. It will not be active until 2023. And because we want to do something in 2022, this is the only program available to us. And to answer your question, yes, the $261.60 is set, by the funding parties. So I don't know if that addresses your
Yeah,
question.
it does, yeah, that's part A. And then part B is the $60 per acre foot administrative charge.
Right.
How do we arrive at that? It seems a little high to me, but how do we arrive at that?
Right. Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think the board was contemplating and approved waiving the irrigation water availability assessment, which is, I'd say probably about, call it $36 an acre foot for round numbers to kind of, because you don't want to penalize, the users, for not using the water. So, you have that, you have, our time, for administering this. And then, so there's a
Okay,
little.
so that was
little bit
rolled
to it.
into that $60. Okay.
Correct,
That
correct.
helps. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I think that CBWD is showing some leadership here, and I hope it kind of accrues to the benefit of the system if others can follow or get their programs approved also, if they're working simultaneously.
If I could just make one other comment, President Powell, I think, working with Reclamation, I think, we got this agreement done in about 2 months, which is, I know for
them it's fast.
some, it's not that fast, but I'd say for this process, it's, it's pretty not, it's not ordinary, I would say.
fast.
So I think, Reclamation, understands the value of our, participation, so.
I have one more comment. I feel pretty comfortable with the shorter term program here, the 500+ plan. That's just a few months of recharge that would be taken out of the east area of benefit. But this longer term, which is still short term, but it's a longer term program. You're talking over 100 acre feet of recharge that would be lost. And I know there was a few sentences in the staff report that talks about, we looked at it and we didn't think that it would be an issue to not recharge at the Tommy C. Levy facility for 3 years. And that we were looking at other ways to conserve water regarding with the urban users. And so, the comment that I wanted to make was that, the Indio Subbasin is on that side. You have other folks that are GSAs, and I guess I wanted to hear a little bit more about whether we think that it's not going to be an issue for us to show that area is in balance, or how are we going to account for that recharge kind of being lost? Is that going to create any issues in the annual reports for the GSAs that are also pointing at that recharge? And I see Zoe back there, so I'd like to hear a little bit more on.
If I may, I think
How do we
there's,
solve that?
there could be concern about a lack of replenishment in the East Valley, but I think what we're really trying to do is mitigate the drought on the entire Colorado River. If we're not able to somehow participate in a contribution to elevate the levels, or at least maintain the levels in Lake Mead, that will go to dead pool, and then there'll be no water available for any use. And so when we look at how we might be able to participate and contribute, we look to see what those actions might have as far as effects within our own region. Primarily, we were concerned about any impacts to the Salton Sea. There's been quite a bit of concern over how fallowing will reduce runoff into the sea. We were also concerned about economic impacts. Again, fallowing seems to have a rather large tail in the region for economic impacts. And as far as replenishment goes, the immediate concern is not that there will be a potential reduction in groundwater levels, but that that effect will not be as detrimental as trying to pursue some other conservation operation or action.
Yeah, and I guess a follow-up to that would be whether there was a possibility to divide the recharge out of the Palm Desert facility and the Tommy C. Levy, and, you know, maybe if we're doing 35 a year, whether we could split that in half. Are we moving Colorado River water to Palm Desert? And if we are, is there a chance for us to split that versus putting the entire stress on the Tommy C. Levy? Was that something that we looked at?
Yes, it was. I think staff kind of considered, you know, a lot of different options. I think, you know, we looked at recharge operations. I think, you know, the general manager's point, you know, I think the issue with the ag conservation program is, you know, sort of unknown, right? Because you're kind of counting on our growers to kind of participate. Whereas with the, you know, the recharge curtailment is definitely under our control. I think, you know, with Palm Desert, yes, I think, you know, we're talking about perhaps like 10,000 or 12,000, you know, right now. I think it's, you know, slowly going to be ramping up to 15,000. So yes, I think there's definitely a possibility. I think what we're trying to propose, to put in here in the proposal is just a concept of limiting recharge. And, you know, and we just used Thomas E. Levy because that's the one that we're doing, you know, for the first agreement. I think the other comment I'll make, in addition to what Jim just talked about, is we're actually going to be starting up Oasis replenishment, which is, you know, something that the board just, you know, discussed, you know, a few minutes ago. And the idea is, you know, we're going to have a slow ramp up on that, which will, you know, help hopefully alleviate, you know, some of the stressors on the groundwater pumping in that area as well. So even if we're just, you know, and I'm not minimizing, I think, the impacts to the replenishment, but I think just want to offer up that, you know, there are some other actions that's coming up online in 2023 and beyond that, you know, hopefully will, you know, shave off some of the, you know, those impacts.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're gaining the ramp up, right? You're gaining the 10,000, 5,000. You're
correct.
No longer pumping. So I think that's a good point. I think the only thing that I worry about is whether you have areas out there that are trying to do water supply assessments and are somehow running into issues because they can no longer. I mean, when you see those water supply assessments, they point to CVWD supplies as supplies that are coming into to the east side as kind of augmenting those supplies, and I just wouldn't want to create issues for that. We know that there's a lot happening out there, and so to the extent that we can minimize the concentration of all these efforts to one particular area, I think would be good for us. So if we're not baking, I know that this is simply for a proposal, but to the extent that we don't bake the facility as the only facility where we would have to do these I wouldn't want to bake the Tommy Levy facility as the facility where we do the offset the replenishment. I think we should leave it open.
Yeah, let's keep it open. I mean, we have replenishment, not just Mid-Valley either. I mean, we could, let's put it all in there. Sure. And then let us decide which one we want to use.
I think that would be staff's plan to adaptively manage.
Right.
As we are able to collect more data, observations of what's happening because of the actions we take, we can certainly adjust moving forward. Absolutely.
Okay, no, great comments. Thank you.
Point. Very good point.
Thank you.
So I would make a motion to approve action item 10A and 10B.
We're going to take them separately.
Okay, then I'll move 10A.
Yep. I'll second it. We have a motion and a second on 10A. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passed 5-0. And then on 10B,
And I'll, again, make the motion to accept item 10A, the authorization for submitting proposals for the voluntary participation in the USBR Lower Colorado River Conservation and Efficiency Program.
all right, and I'll second your motion to approve 10B. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, that passed 5-0 also. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, let's see. Should we have our new Director of Finance give a speech first before we do 10C? Are you ready with your speech? Did they tell you about that? Yes? Okay, that's good stuff. 10C is to, is this?
So we actually, so it should have gone under administration. I apologize for that. It was listed under clerk of the board, but in preparation for our new director of finance, we wanted to go ahead and take advantage of updating the resolutions which have the authorized personnel for the investment and banking transactions. So what we did is we removed some of the staff that has since left finance and added our new director of finance on there.
Put him right to work.
Yep.
Right. Good.
And these can be taken together, Mr. President, if wished.
And we took Scott off of there too. I guess he was on there temporarily while we
Because
were.
we didn't have a finance and we just needed a certain number of individuals.
Yeah, okay.
What two would you take? We just do that.
We took off Jeff and Scott.
No, I'm talking about C. Jeff, you said you could take them both together.
Oh, he meant the resolutions. There's multiple resolutions. There's a total of 4 resolutions that need to be
On this
approved
one item.
on one item.
For the
Yeah.
authorities to sign and to conduct transactions.
I'll make a motion to approve the 4 resolutions.
Second?
Good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passed 5-0. Service, 10D. MOU with, who's taking this? Scott?
Scott,
Okay.
just probably making some last minute adjustments to his remarks.
You know, I kind of went through all those things. They sound very strict, all the things we're going to do, but we're already doing all those things.
Yeah, we're doing all of them. The non-functional turf, there's a commitment of removing 30% of non-functional turf, and that's something we're working towards already under the state guidelines.
Yeah.
So,
I'll let you talk first.
well, I was just gonna say that this board item is part of the ongoing discussions on reducing Colorado River usage. The Southern Nevada Water Authority seeks municipal water providers to commit to reducing water use, increasing conservation, and increasing water reuse. And I was just going to ask if the board had questions after that. I recommend approval of this item, but I'm available to answer questions.
You know, I don't think that we need to sign this. I don't understand what we're gaining from this. I mean, I understand what Nevada is trying to push, but we're not in the same situation as Nevada. And so to put ourselves into the same situation, it doesn't make any sense to me that why we would want to sign this and tie our hands. I mean, we're already conserving, like you said. We're doing a lot of things, correct? So
Correct.
Why tie our hands even further? You know, when for the last 100 years we've been doing a fairly good job, maybe better than other people.
And I think part of that is our need to preserve and conserve the aquifer. I mean, this is really about if we are receiving less imported water to do recharge, we have to protect the aquifer by conserving it in other areas. As President Powell pointed out, we're doing most of these things already. And the new one from the state, the directive is the ban on non-functional turf. So that applies, it does not apply to residential, it applies to commercial, industrial, and institutional customers, HOAs in the areas of their home.
I get everything that you're saying, Scott, and I agree with everything that you're saying. I just don't agree that we need to do this MOU. That if we're already doing what you're saying, okay, and we're already on that path, I don't think that we need to do this. I don't think it benefits us.
And there's there's language in here that, really talks about,
It talks about, watering every other day. A lot of drastic things here.
Well,
but it also talks about, taking action that's specific to your area. And so I think that gives us flexibility. We're not looking at implementing watering every other day. We have our current ban in place for domestic water on irrigating during the ban on overspray irrigation during daylight hours. But this MOU doesn't commit us to expanding that. What might move us in that direction would be if the governor or the State Water Resource Control Board required us to move to a higher level from level 2 of our water shortage contingency plan.
I get that, but that would be coming from the governor. I just don't understand why we have to sign this.
I think this provides us with support on all the activities we're undertaking right now, in discussions with the Colorado River. For example, if we recharge less at Levy, we are doing many of these actions, but I do think there's an opportunity here to, kind of expand our efforts on the non-functional turf area, and see how much we can conserve to offset what we're not recharging.
I know, we're
So
going to do that without it.
I've read through several times, and I look at all the items that relate to best management practices in the letter, and you could say we're already doing every single one of them. I mean, are we transforming our outdoor landscaping and urban environments for climate resilience? Yeah, we have turf removal projects that we're supporting. The cities are supporting that. Do we promote ethic-wise use of water? Absolutely. Do we have mandatory watering schedules? So that doesn't mean that it's one day a week. It means like we have, we're not irrigating, during the day, we're saying irrigate at night. That's a mandatory watering schedule. Compliance enforcement. We have people that go out and are seeing that right now. I mean, that's nothing new. We wouldn't have to add a single person to that. We're already doing it. Do we have limitations on new turf? Yeah, our building codes right now have limitations on turf. We don't have to change a thing. Do we increase efficiency on indoor fixtures and appliances? We have programs for that replace old, water wasting toilets, for example. Do we adopt conservation-oriented rate structures to incentivize efficiency? That's what our tiered rates are, and we have penalties on them. Every single thing in here I see we're already doing, and so I didn't see this memorandum of understanding as prohibiting CBWD to carry out its own adaptive management conservation practices. But you look at who else might sign on to this. James Lockhead from Pueblo Water in Colorado. Last time I was in Denver, I went through Aurora in Colorado, and there's water everywhere.
Director Nielsen, I apologize, but I believe your mic is not on.
It was on. I pushed it on. So you've got, Las Vegas. Yeah, they're pushing this memorandum, but they're pushing it with other states like Phoenix and Tucson and Colorado and St. George and Salt Lake City. I mean, it's all these cities that in the upper basin as well that need to do these things as well. So I didn't see this as a detriment to CBWD, and it's something that we're already doing in every single category.
I think one of the problems, one of the perceptions is that that California is not doing anything or that we're not doing anything. And the truth is, we are doing a tremendous amount, not just to manage our own resources, but to help build elevation in Meade. And we need to be more demonstrative and we need to let people know that we're doing all these things and lead by example. I think we're in a really good position to do that. And the more that we can let the world know that we're doing these things, and we're doing a lot of different things, and they're working, because we need everyone else to do these things too. So I fully support this.
You guys don't need my vote anyways.
No, we don't need it, but it's the messaging, and I want your vote, but look, with things are even
Doing all this, so I don't understand what this gets us.
because people are trying to find a way to come together to save the Colorado River, and this is a real easy way for us to participate in that.
This, once you sign this is forever.
It's an MOU.
It's
There's
a
no
contract.
authority that's going to force this on anybody. Yeah, where's the penalty clause? There isn't one. I mean, not that we're not serious about it. We are, and we're doing all these things, and we're going to keep doing them.
I think one of the intangible problems is if we don't sign it, there'll be a lot more visibility on why did CVWD not sign it? And then we'll have to be answering, Scott will have to be answering those questions, not only from the media, but from the other states that'll continue to finger point at California agencies as not doing enough, as being the largest user.
There's a lot of hostility out there towards the Southern California Colorado River use.
Although if you listen to Andy Mueller up in the Upper Basin, you'll find that all the positive press is on California and none is, and all the negative press is on Colorado. But with that being said, I would make a motion that we approve item 10D to authorize the general manager to execute a MOU among the Colorado River Basin municipal and public water providers that demonstrate our commitment to reduce water consumption and increase reuse and recycling in our service area.
Second.
One last question. Is IED doing this too? Or they're not part of this?
I can't answer as to IID. I'm not sure.
IID does not serve the domestic water.
So just strictly
They
domestic?
sell water to the cities.
Yeah, so it's strictly domestic.
It's domestic.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Was that 5-0? I think it was. All right, 5-0. Passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
E, accounts payable. So we have a request to lift the $75,000 cap on approvals without board action, but it's only for it. I read through this, Jen. I just have a question.
Sure.
Are we authorizing up to 150,000, or is it unlimited? Because I saw some notes in there that it could be up to 150,000 for one project.
Correct, per project. So right now with the city, Rancho Mirage is the only one that gave $6 to large landscape. So at 25,000 square feet, that would be 150 for one project, but they're eligible to apply for multiple projects. So for one customer, it could be more than 150, but per project, it would be only
All right,
150.
and so we didn't get a red line that I found, so I couldn't find the exact language, but so this is unlimited authority? Is that what we're doing here? Or is there a limit? That's the question.
Is it, I guess, unlimited?
Well, it's unlimited for this specific type of request.
Right, yeah.
So it doesn't give me carte
Yeah.
But still restricted by the program itself.
Correct.
Which is going to have.
Not going out to buy an Aston Martin.
Yeah.
And the rebates are
You could
based
probably lease
on,
one.
the rebates are based on our policy. So
Mike?
No, I understand.
It's on.
No, I'm just asking about the language. It'd be nice if we could get a red line on these. I think we've talked about that in the past.
I apologize.
Rather than having to do, hide and seek on what was changed and what wasn't. It's hard to read a large document and find the changes without a red line.
Right, so,
Agreed.
so Bryce, on the staff report in the packet, is there a schedule that says on these particular managers, the general manager, that's up to X amount, and now we're taking it higher than that? I think that's the
It's
question.
currently up to 75,000 on everything, but I think for these, it's unlimited now.
There's a table that lists all the exceptions, so this would just be adding
there is.
another line to that table. I forget what
Is that what it is?
spot it
All
was.
right, I didn't find that.
I mean, we want large customers to change.
Well, especially with the city buy-in of that $6, it boosted immediately.
I mean, we may even want to look at our policy. 7,500.
Where's that table?
I don't see that.
Oh, I didn't bring it with me.
I don't think it was in there.
Of course, it brings that.
This actually, the cash disbursement policy references the procurement policy, which has the table. And so we didn't, we were talking about the need to rewrite this, kind of that document, I think, and have those limits in here, but.
Right.
So we didn't bring the procurement policy because
It's for straight procurements.
yeah, but it does reference it in the procurement policy.
Well, can we see it?
Sure.
You're asking us to approve something we can't see?
Let's see if we can pull up can you try, Yolanda, if you can try and go to, I believe you can find the procurement policy in our intranet under policies. If we just give her a minute, she should be able to pull
All right,
that up
maybe
online.
Put it on the screen.
Yeah, I can't get it to it.
Trust me.
Yeah. When was the last time we pulled a fast one on you?
Not lately.
Yeah, see?
So the current procurement policy allows managers and supervisors up to $10,000, directors $25,000, and the general manager and assistant general managers up to $75,000.
Understand
And if you
that.
remember, we brought the procurement policy a few years ago and asked for approval of the general manager's authority to go over his amount when it came to like utilities, and there was probably 8 to 10
Yolanda, go back.
things on that procurement policy.
Go back.
that allowed the general manager
Go to
to sign above
policies.
and beyond his
Right there,
Well,
below, the
level.
brown tab.
Yeah.
But because this isn't a
And then
procurement
see if it's there.
purchase, this is basically a rebate, it doesn't
not
really
there.
reflect on the procurement policy.
All right. I just don't, I didn't see the change in the actual document, so.
Good purchasing.
Can you guys just bring this back?
Of course. I don't know. Do we have items that are pending approval right now that we may lose?
Yes, we submitted some check requests recently to you.
So they're going to sit on my desk if I haven't already signed them.
I think during a closed session, about a month ago, the board talked about this, and they gave us temporary approval for the general manager to authorize these until we brought this to board.
Yeah, I understand.
So we can always bring it back at the next meeting.
I just want to see the language, that's all.
Okay.
Maybe now's not a good time since it's not in the
It's a
packet.
table that's not very helpful.
Okay, well, maybe we
necessarily.
can work on making it a little more helpful.
Yeah, that's why we talked about possibly putting it into the cash disbursement policy.
Yeah, all right, so we still have the temporary authority in effect.
Yes.
So then you can go ahead and sign those checks, Jim?
Trust me?
I think we already gave you that.
Yes.
That's the table right there, okay.
That's the
That's
ones that are marked as like potentially over 75,000.
right, and the turf rebates are not on this because it's not a procurement.
So that's what you're just trying to put turf rebates on this.
Right.
list?
Somewhere.
In the next few months, we will be coming to board with the new procurement policy, and we can add that. However, I think it really belongs on the cash disbursement policy and not the procurement policy.
Right, so for the Brown Act purposes, since this is on the agenda to make this change, and now that we publicly disclosed where exactly the change is going to be made, if the board wishes, they could take action now.
So the document that was provided in the board packet doesn't have the change in it. Is
Correct.
that what you're saying? So we can go ahead and approve you guys to go ahead and make that change, and then I just want to, I'd like to see the language, you know? It should have been in there.
But so this is where it would go.
No, I
One on the
understand.
screen, is that
All
right?
right, so go, you have the temporary authority right now, go fix it and then bring it back and we'll approve
The
it.
one on the screen is the procurement policy, not the one that was attached initially, the accounts payable and cash disbursement policy.
Right, but this is where it will go. No.
Why don't you guys, you have the temporary authority, we'll table this and bring it back next time and fix it.
But it won't be Jenna that's bringing it back because Jenna is leaving us to go work for Eastern. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Why would you do a thing like that?
I was trying to get this done before I left.
I guess it's in Hemet, Paris.
Paris.
Paris, yeah.
Paris.
Oh,
I live in Beaumont, so it's an equal commute.
yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, I'll be
that's a
Director of
bummer.
Water Use Efficiency.
Of which?
Director of Water Use Efficiency.
Nice, well,
It's kind of like
Thanks,
Director
Jim.
of Water Management or
Yeah.
Director of Conservation or but
yeah, oh, we'll be sorry to lose you.
Thank you.
I saw them advertising that position.
So when this matter is brought back, if there's a need to ratify anything the general manager is there. In the meantime, we can do that, but based on the direction of staffs that got the authorization from the general manager temporarily, we'll bring this back, approve it, and ratify anything that needs to be ratified.
Yeah,
our next meeting will be in December.
so it's a small victory, Jenna,
Yeah.
don't feel bad.
As long as the customers still get paid, that's fine with me.
All right,
So this will be back on December 13th.
that's fine, it'll be quick, yeah, thanks. On to written communications, where are we here? That's weird. All right, so I guess we didn't have any written communications. Next is on to 11B, discussion of the draft legislative and policy platform. Victoria, good morning. And you had a poll of a variety of people, so you
Yes,
have info.
I do have info. Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. I'd be remiss also as a government affairs person not to wish you happy election day. It is the Super Bowl for us, so we are watching all the results coming and starting at 5 p.m. Clicker. So today's presentation, we did send out an email to the board and kind of look at what our current policy platform has and if there were any changes or any other initiatives that the board would like to target for the new state legislative session and the new Congress, which are a 2-year session. So this platform will be in effect for 23 and 24. And so as we go through this presentation, I just want you to bear in mind that these directives are not in their final order, and they are not placed in any sort of priority level either, nor will the final policy document be in a priority level. They're just all directives for staff to follow. And so what we're looking for today is input and further direction as we'll come back in December with the final document for adoption. So I'll go kind of quickly through the ones that have remained very similar to the existing document. So that would be directives 1, 2, and 3. So Directive 1 looks to maintaining local control of our water resources and resisting additional burdens that may hinder district operations. Directive 2 is protecting our ability to efficiently manage and operate on day-to-day functions. And Directive 3, protect Coachella Valley water districts, local and imported water supplies. Directive 4 is very similar to our existing Directive 4. What we've done is just combined two directives to make sure that we include the monitoring of new regulations for various contaminants as we continue to look for and support appropriate state compliance periods for new MCLs and water quality standards. Now, Directive 5, 6, and 7, also very similar to our current platform. So this has to do with making sure that turf rebates would be, or any sort of water conservation rebate would be exempt from federal income tax. We just saw this in the state legislature be approved this past year, and so we continue to advocate for that at the federal level. Directive 6, we just amended to make sure that we continue to work with the Water Board on making sure any policies regarding making conservation a California way of life, that we're part of that conversation. And Directive 7 is to allow for flexibility in the contracting process, particularly for construction and engineering services. Directive 8, we've slightly amended its language to include all disadvantaged and underserved communities within the district service area. And then just to make sure, all types of funding were included, regional, state, and federal agencies. And so the supporting paragraphs that will be in the final document will still include safer funding, which was more clearly identified in the directive in the last platform, or in our current platform. So Directive 9, we've also amended our current platform, mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic and the governor's executive order. So we've amended Directive 9 to make sure that we continue to monitor the ways in which the state or federal government will address water affordability. This past year in the state legislative session, we saw bills like SB 222, which had to do with the formation of a low-income water rate assistance program. And that was vetoed by the governor, also because of budgetary reasons. It would take a lot to fund that program. So we just want to continue to monitor and be a part of that conversation. And then we've continued to include the opposition to a water tax or fee. Directive 10, same thing, very similar to our current platform, making sure that we can seek external funding for new and existing facilities and infrastructure. Directive 11, we've just amended it to support investments that would improve California infrastructure for conveyance, storage capacity, flexibility, and reliability of clean water. And so the current Directive 11 more explicitly called out the Delta Conveyance Project, and so Directive 11 would have subsections that would still refer to that and cites reservoir. 12 and 13 are similar as well to current platforms. This one's related to the QSA, the Salton Sea, and the Salton Sea Management Program. Directive 13, we've just amended the language to strongly support a liability exemption regarding water and wastewater agencies for the designation of PFAS as a hazardous substance under CERCLA. Now, Directives 14 and 15 are going to be new. So Directive 14 is to support and potentially sponsor efforts that would streamline federal loan and grant processes to reduce delays and remove barriers.
Ambitious one there.
And that's as a result of some challenges that staff has encountered with certain agencies and some of their cumbersome requirements for both loan and or grant funding. And so the supporting paragraph for this directive would also include, of course, state and federal processes and the Buy America and Build America provisions. And then last but not least, what seems to be the theme for today's conversation is we would continue to strengthen conservation and sustainability of the Colorado River in both the upper and lower basins while respecting the law of the river. And so Directive 15 would have multiple subsections underneath it that would address the upcoming drought contingency plan negotiations, salinity control, current drought on the river, and conservation initiatives through the Inflation Reduction Act funding. And so that's my presentation. I welcome the feedback of the board, any questions, any input that you'd like to see as we further develop the platform.
I think when you said upcoming drought contingency plan, did you mean the renewal or the new version of the 2007
Correct, the
guidelines?
negotiations for the new
Yeah.
DCP.
It's not a DCP, is it? Is it?
The interim operating
Operating
guidelines
agreement.
is 2007, the
Yes.
DCP is
Yeah.
2019.
It's a different.
Sorry.
Yeah, different words, yeah. Similar objective, different words.
We know what you mean, though.
Thank you.
We removed, continue to closely monitor and comment on hexavalent chromium contaminant level rulemaking.
So we combined that one with Directive 4. Let me back up here. And we didn't make it exclusive to Chromium 6, but altogether monitoring of new regulations for various contaminants. But in the supporting material for this directive, we would, of course, identify Chromium 6 as one we'd continue to monitor.
Victoria, I have two questions. Thank you for this, by the way. So Directive 8 that you said was modified, that's the disadvantaged communities item. So that does now allow theoretically other disadvantaged communities or neighborhoods to be covered for funding possibilities that may not be located
Correct.
in the East Valley.
Yeah, the current directive reads to continue to advocate to ensure Coachella Valley disadvantaged communities are considered in safer funding decisions. And so we've modified the directive to now look at underserved communities throughout the whole district.
Great, I appreciate that, thank you. And then my last question is on the, and I think it's related to this item, on the last page of the BB&K summary that we received,
Yes.
the author, whose name escapes me at the moment, mentioned two funding opportunities. One was Bureau of Reclamation, the other was an EPA grant amount for up to $69 million in funding available. But I'm wondering if we've looked at those and if we've seen opportunities for potential projects that might qualify in those two areas. And if we haven't, maybe we could do that because the application process is the end of November.
Certainly. I'm uncertain if we are pursuing these opportunities, but I can check in with finance and
Yeah, I'm looking
respective
at
parties.
Carrie too, so if somebody could check those out, that would be very useful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Victoria, I have a question on Directive 11 that supports investments to improve California's infrastructure and storage capacity. I look at this and I'm just kind of thinking through maybe what the process was in pulling the DCP, the Delta Conveyance Project out of the main header. And I get it in that you have Sites Reservoir, you have DCP and other projects in the city moving forward.
Director Nelson, I believe your mic. Thank you.
I keep pushing it on. Okay, and so my question is in your discussion in removing the DCP, I look at the State Water Project being fundamental to an imported water supply here, and that the DCP rises to the level of deserving its own directive, because it's an important reliability issue to get water around the Delta. So I'm just wondering how that conversation went in the legislative committee and with staff and.
So these are all amendable still, and so we can create a new directive. We were thinking for this particular one is to have subsections that identified certain projects under like the overarching umbrella of California infrastructure. But certainly, you know, if the board thinks it merits its own directive specific to Delta Conveyance, then that's something that we can definitely do.
All right, I would just offer that up to the board in terms of it being one of our #1 priorities.
Yeah, it is. Is that what they're calling it, the DCP?
Yeah, it's called the Delta Conveyance Project. And
It's,
so
it's
it is
actually a
the-
great name. It's,
Yeah, I know, they stole our Colorado River name.
the initials are confusing. Yeah. Okay.
That would be just my suggestion in that, and I appreciate the efforts on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Good. So you're really just looking to share and
Just
get
to share
our
and
feedback?
have the conversation, and so I appreciate
Appreciate
the
that.
dialogue that we've had, and
Yeah.
look forward to bringing this back in December for adoption.
All right,
Thanks,
Thank you.
Victoria.
thanks.
On to the board member general comments, Director Nelson.
I have no comments this morning, thanks. Glad to see the rains coming through California, Colorado.
No comments.
No comments.
Make sure to vote. Only comment.
Well, happy Thanksgiving too, since I don't think we're going to see you until after Thanksgiving. That's that. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Nope. Board meeting reports, I see the first 8 are Vice President Estrada, so why don't you get busy?
You know,
with that?
I think I've missed the last few meetings. I've had some traveling to do and some other commitments that have made it difficult. But I'm happy to be back here in person. So no wonder I have a full list here of things that I got to report on. See if I remember all of them. But September 7th. That was a meeting that we had with the engineering staff and Coachella Valley Unified School District staff as it related to their efforts to build the North Shore Elementary School in North Shore. I think it was a good meeting. I had heard from some of their board directors, some of their trustees, that they were actually thinking of drilling their own well, and doing all the treatment that came with that well to serve that campus. And I said, look, we need to stop getting away from these things as much as possible. We just recently consolidated your last school that was on a well, that was Westside Elementary School, and now we're here again, proposing to put another school on a well. So I think that was a good conversation. It kind of allowed them to kind of look at the benefits of extending infrastructure to connect that proposed school to our water system. And I think from what I'm hearing, that's what they're going to do. So that's something that they've put in their budget.
Is there sewer hookup though? I don't think there's sewer.
There is no sewer. We talked about water and sewer. Sewer was not very feasible. It'd be a lot of improvements that would be required, not just extension of sewer mainline, but also improvements to a lift station, to the wastewater treatment plant itself, so that there's a lot more improvements on the sewer side that need to take place to allow for some of that area to expand. But the water is in, and I think from comparing the water and sewer, the water is probably most critical. So that was a good conversation, and it sounds like staff is regularly now checking in with them. So thank you for that. And the next meeting, September 29th, we had the All Valley Mayors and Tribal Chairpersons Luncheon that was hosted at the Agua Caliente. It was a good event. All the mayors were there. They all gave a quick, I believe, 5-minute presentation on what was going on in their city. It's been a while, but the one thing I do recall was that Indian Wells was very happy to announce that they're bringing in a grocery store. So for those that don't know, Indian Wells does not have any grocery stores.
Or gas stations.
Or gas stations or drive-through restaurants. But I think they're bringing in a a Whole Foods, I think. A Whole Foods is coming in, so congratulations.
Sprouts.
Oh, so Sprouts. Better yet, Sprouts. So anyways, I remember that that was a big announcement. Obviously, I was at the strategic planning workshop. I think most of us were there, so I was there the whole day. I think it went well. A lot of projects. On the 10th, October 10th, I did not participate in the tour, but I did come in the morning. They rendezvoused here to take off to the tour, which I think included 29 Palms, some parts of Mojave. But these were folks that were going to tour several water districts that are also somewhat doing what we're trying to do here, which is help smaller systems consolidate, kind of surrounding the idea of providing safe drinking water to folks as much as possible. So they were accompanied by board member Firestone from the State Water Resource Control Board, and Carrie and I welcomed them here and gave some opening remarks and a quick overview of what we were doing here in the Coachella Valley as it related to bigger systems helping smaller systems. And then I did not attend the Colorado River Board meeting on October 13th. I did attend that Salton Sea Authority Board meeting. I don't remember any specifics of that. We have the general reports. I'm sure there was a big conversation on Colorado River issues. And then I'll just leave it at that. And then so October 19th, I did have the pleasure of attending the DBBA Public Officials Luncheon, where Director Nelson was a presenter, and he gave an overview of Colorado River projections, where we're at, where we think we're going. Showed a lot of very detailed graphs of projections, but I think he did an amazing job really going through those slides and really explaining what we were looking at. So I think everybody really appreciated the presentation. Thank you for that. The October 24th, 25th, I was in Sacramento at a Cal Mutual's annual meeting where we were asked to be part of a panel. I was on a panel with Susan Kennedy. So she spoke a little bit about Cadiz and their approach as it relates to their efforts to want to help disadvantaged communities. And so we were there with Victoria and a lot of other folks. And I think that's it for me. So I'm done. Thank you.
Great. On to Director Nelson.
Okay, on October 27th, I participated with the seven basin states, as well as USBR and Interior, about their rollout of the upcoming announcements on what they were planning to do in 2023 regarding opening of the record of decision and potentially adjusting releases out of Glen Canyon Dam to as much as 5 million acre feet, which this year, as you know, is 7 million acre feet. And there's an obligation for the Upper Basin to release 7.5 million acre feet average over 10 years, with addition to their Mexico deliveries up to 8.23. So it's quite a stark announcement, and they kind of previewed that. And so our actions today reflect the dire need to do something quickly. And then on the same day, I made a presentation, excuse me, to Growing Coachella Valley. talked about, basically gave the same presentation as I did to the Builders Association, and but I also talked quite a bit about the Ag Conservation Program and what growers might be able to do under that program. So I thought it was a good update, and Ben left, he was on there as well, but it was a good update.
Great. The next was the Coachella Economic Partnership. Was I the only one there? I actually went, sat at the DVBA table, so I didn't arrange it through here, but it was, I guess, the first one they've done in a couple of years in person, and they had an economist there. It was good, I thought. You know, there's a little bit of a slowdown in the housing market, which they were able to kind of quantify. Hard to say where things are going. I think the guy made one prediction the whole time, and either I misunderstood him or he was wrong, was that the next Fed, which already happened because this meeting was last Monday, the next Fed rate increase was only going to be 50 basis points, but they came out and it was 75. So I think that, I don't know if he was referring to the one after. Well, of course now he would say he was, but it was wrong. They went 75. Anyways, thought it was a good meeting. Any other meetings?
I have a meeting for sure. I think for my meetings, this kind of jumped around a bit, so I don't know if I reported on some of these prior to this, or if this is just catch up from some other stuff. But the one that I'll report on that I know for sure hasn't been reported on is I did attend on October 28th the North Shore groundbreaking. So they did have their groundbreaking for this school on October 28th. There was a number of speakers there, different representatives, and so I attended the groundbreaking for that. And that was in North Shore on site.
Okay, any others? Is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
So move.
Second. We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passed 5-0. And so, general manager report.
Yes, sir, thank you. In addition to gaining Director of Finance and losing Water Conservation Manager, we've also been informed that Steve Bigley will be retiring at the end of the calendar year. We're also recruiting a risk manager, chief inspector. We've got about 6 or 7 vacancies in finance and about the same number in engineering. So HR is trying to keep us in a full crew status. It is interesting that a lot of folks are looking for hybrid work environments, and of course I don't support that here because of the fact that about 2/3 of our employees would not have that option even if it was available. So I believe it's important for us to be consistent in those work requirements. On the standard that I typically report on, we've got 2 qualifying cases right now for COVID. About 67%, we've had 360 cases, so that would work out to be about 67% of our workforce. Some of those, I'm sure there's duplicates in there. Some people probably got COVID more than once, but about 67%. 84% of our staff has submitted documented proof of vaccination status. Currently, we have 8 folks off work, either because they're qualifying cases or they are direct contact situations, household member positive or employee self-symptomatic. So 8 folks off work right now, 3 cases so far confirmed for the month of November. There is some concern that with the flu, that November may be a higher month than October was. And that's all I've got, sir.
Hope everyone's getting their flu shots.
I will pass today, Mr. President.
Okay, great. Any department reports?
No, sir. Nobody's taking the opportunity today.
Okay. Hearing none, at this time, the board will recess into closed session to regular meeting is hereby reconvened. We do not have any reportable action from closed session. And with no further business, we are adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.